Now we're right here? All right. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another very impromptu podcast session, Lighting Up Live with Steve Zengel and a very special guest. As you all know who watched this before, I just do these when I feel like it. Whenever somebody really, really special says that they're willing to do it, I put it together. You know some of the people that have been on before: J.R. Smith, Kyle Anderson, Bobby Hurley, John Crotty, Jack Ford, you name it, right? Mike Woodson last year, head coach Indiana. So I have another unbelievable guest, long time history with this guy. He's been in the NCAA Tournament 3 times from Monmouth University. We have a long history. I saw him last week. I got ticked off because I got thrown out of the cigar shop that closed. I had nowhere to watch the game. I ended up going to Bar Anticipation. He was there for an event because he's a very popular guy and everybody wants him to speak at all this stuff. So I run into him and I say, hey, Dave, why don't you want to do a podcast and just tell everybody what it's like to be in the NCAA Tournament from an insider's perspective? He looks and goes, yeah, man, when are we going to do it? It was that easy. Love this guy. He's been so instrumental in my career. And we'll talk about that all on the show. But without any further ado, please meet former head coach Dave Calloway, Monmouth University Hawks.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. I think Steve's blown a little bit out of proportion, but the ease part of him asking me to do it and saying, sure, when you want to do it, yes. And happy to join you. This is, I think, a great time of year, March Madness. And the games, the first two rounds were just tremendous. It's the reason they call it March Madness, right?
Yes.
And I mean, it's just it's the unpredictability, and how about the Jersey City folks? How about St. Peter's? I mean, how great
Give it up for Jersey. Give it up for Jersey. So, Dave, what I wanted to talk about too, and for the people that don't know, Dave was coaching at Monmouth. He was very successful. Had an assistant there named Kevin Nickelberry. Kevin Nickelberry leaves to get the head job at Hampton, called me. I then started going to work with Nick. And today, I don't know if you heard this. Did you see that today?
I did hear it.
Today, Kevin Nickelberry, who coached the LSU game because Will Wade got fired like 3 days ago or a week ago, Nick had ended up coaching LSU against Iowa State, was it?
Yes.
So coached against Iowa State, didn't come up on top, really, really hard situation, but just landed with Pat Ewing at Georgetown today. So congratulations to Nick. I got my start through Nick because of this guy, and really appreciate that. So anyone can listen to me talk, right? I never made the tournament 3 times. I was at a small school in Virginia, for 3 years, but this guy can. So Dave, what I want to talk today, and I know I only have you for an hour, talk to people about that day that you decide, you're in as an automatic bid with the NEC at the time. Not the MAC now, but I think at the time you're NEC.
Correct.
So you get in at the NEC, you win a championship. Talk to people about a couple different things. Number one, the pressure on you as a coach to win, not even the regular season champ, because that doesn't mean anything, right? That's a golf clap. But when you win the tournament, that's an automatic bid. You go to the dance. So once you're in with that automatic bid, it's not like Selection Sunday where Pike and Rutgers are waiting on a bubble to hear their name announced, or Woody up at IU go, yeah, we're in, we made it, we're first 4 in, or last 4 in. You're in. So take the audience through what it's like, the feeling from winning the NEC tournament, knowing you're in, and then the preparation of what it takes. And then you've been there. You've played Villanova. You played some of the big boys in the first round. Take people what an accomplishment it was for a school like St. Peter's to beat Kentucky. You've been there from every level. So talk on those things, please, for me, to the people.
Well, first of all, we didn't do what St. Peter's has done, which is absolutely amazing. And congratulations to Shaheen Holloway and the St. Peter's staff. And Joe Whalen's son is assistant up there, so, all terrific. So the interesting thing for us was in 2001 was the first time we went as a head coach. Went once as an assistant as well in '96, where we actually played Marquette in the NCAA tournament. And that was the year Quincy Lee hit the free throws, and we beat Ryder at home in Boylan. In 2001, my first year going to the tournament as a head coach, we were in the championship game in Trenton, where the NEC tournament was that year. And we were playing St. Francis, New York in the championship game, and we were down 20 with 14 minutes left and came back and won the game. Yep. So, from that point on, we were just coaching, trying to win the game, and, things hadn't gone well for, about 26 minutes, so trying to do my math there quick. You picked up on that. So, with 14 minutes left, we're down 20, so now we're just trying to get back in the game and just make a play at a time, and then all of a sudden, we're back in the game, and then all of a sudden we take the lead and we end up winning. And it was just a wild wave ride, of momentum from that point on, and then, we were able to, we had almost a whole week until Selection Sunday, probably about 5 days. And we knew we were going to be, most likely a 16 seed. So then it was just a matter of, which top team are we going to play, But Selection Sunday was great. Had the whole campus community came together, and we were together on Sunday. And then they announced, that Duke was the #1 overall seed, and then they were going to play Monmouth in the first round. So everybody was very, very excited. We were excited to see our name up there, and the excitement, just really hit. And then about 10 seconds later, reality hit. Duke just beat North Carolina by 40 in the ACC championship game, and they were overwhelming favorites to win the entire tournament. So, but it was a great experience, a great feeling, and this time of year, I tell people often, that particular year and the memories of winning are great. There's 350 Division I men's basketball programs out there, give or take, and 346 of them, their season ends on a loss.
Yeah.
The only 4 that their season ends on a win are the winners of the national championship, the winner of the NIT, the winner of the CBI, and the winner of the CIT tournaments.
Yep.
And the day the 346 teams, whenever their season ends, whether it's in their conference tournament or in one of the postseason tournaments or even in the NCAA tournament, but the day their season ends, thought goes immediately, all right, what do we need to do to get to the NCAA tournament next year?
Yeah.
Everything that every coach and player does in Division I basketball, it's all about those 3 weeks in March. What can we do to be a part of what I call the greatest tournament that God ever invented? Yep. It's absolutely fantastic.
Yep. So talk about that for a second, because everybody has the perspective, like the head coach, but it's like a business. You have assistants, you have DBOs, you have a few other people under you. So what is that system like the day you win the NEC tournament? You're in. You don't know who you're going to play yet. Talk to the people about what's happening in the offices. Who is doing what at that time? Is all recruiting done at that point and it's just focused on the tournament? Or is there some recruiting saying, hey, can you come watch us play? Like, explain to the people what is everybody on the staff, not just the head coach, but what is everybody's role, including yours, what is everybody's role, responsibility at that time? Because I have to imagine you're kicking in high gear, everybody's humming, and what is each person doing?
Yeah, probably the best example to give is actually 2006. We won the championship game against Fairleigh Dickinson. Chris Kenny made the layup pretty much at the buzzer. And we knew that we were close to we knew we were going to probably be a 16 seed, and there was a chance at that point in time they had the opening round games.
Yep.
So we knew there was a chance we were going to be in the opening round game. On Saturday night, Hampton, ironically,
Yep.
You guys weren't there yet, but Hampton was playing, and they had a losing record in the regular season, and they were in a championship game, and they won.
Yeah.
So when they had won that game, and throughout the game, we saw that they were winning, so I watched it, and we had a pretty good idea. Well, we knew they were going to be in the opening round game because they were the only team in the tournament with a losing record.
Yep.
So they were guaranteed to be in. So we didn't know who the other team was going to be, and there was a chance it was going to be us. So I actually called the staff, and we had played them the year before, said, let's pull the tape, let's pull the scout report, and let's prepare Sunday as if we're in the opening round game, and we're going to play Hampton. We won't know until Selection Sunday.
Yep.
But let's prepare. We'll get an extra day, because if we play, we're playing Tuesday.
Yeah.
We're only going to have one day to prepare, so let's just get an extra day in. So my staff thought I was crazy. The players were like half and half. They thought I was crazy, but then they also knew that I had worked, as you mentioned, with CBS.
Yep.
So they thought I had some sort of in, and I knew already. I had no idea. It was just a hunch.
Yeah.
And so we ended up practicing and preparing for Hampton.
Yep.
And then we went. And part of the reason I wanted to do this, and my wife gets the credit and takes the credit for this, was, that day when I was talking about us going in the opening round game, I didn't like Selection Sunday is a special day when you're in the tournament.
Yeah.
When your name gets up there and the crowd's there and they cheer, it's just a special feeling. And I didn't want our players to feel down that they were in this opening round game. It's still a part of the tournament. So, I wanted them to be prepared, for that. So, lo and behold, it comes up that Villanova's the one seed in the tournament. They were number one in the country that year. And the winner of the opening round game between Hampton and Monmouth is going to play Villanova.
Yep.
And the excitement was still the same.
Yep.
Our guys were into it. They were cheering. But we had to get all our plans going right after Selection Sunday into the middle of the night. We were flying out 6 a.m. the next morning to go to Dayton to play.
Yeah.
And then, we had a huge advantage over Hampton now because their game ended Saturday night. They traveled back to Virginia. They were somewhere, wherever their tournament was.
Yep.
Then they found out they were playing. They had to travel to Ohio. We had already prepared for them. Now we practiced out at Wright State on Monday, and we were ready to go.
Now, who does that in your basketball staff? Is it the DBO? Who scheduled? Like, you found out Sunday. You got to fly out Monday. Who does all that travel arranging for a whole team and everything?
Yeah.
So what is that done like?
Yeah. So I remember Jeff Billett was one of the assistants. He had the scout on Hampton when we played him last time, so he was handling the scout. Mark Calzanetti, one of our assistants, he was working on some travel arrangements with our DBO, who was Keith Olnick, who is nephew of Bobby Farrell, the great Seton Hall Prep high school coach. And then Ronnie and Mark and Jeff and myself then regathered to work on game plan. Now that we definitely knew we were playing Hampton, what do we want to tweak? And then from there, it was just ready to go. We were kind of ahead of the game. But each person kind of has a role. Mark was our lead recruiter, so he was handling still a lot of recruiting, making sure that the players we were involved with, were following us and knew we were on, and staying connected that way. So it's a little bit of a different role from everybody. But in the end, you want the experience to be special for the players, and your fan base. The fans that come out and support you, and to tell you, I spent a little more than a few minutes on working out tickets and helping people out. You can imagine.
People, they chuckle about that, but that's a huge part of it, right? Because there's so many people that take care of you, so many people who supported you along the way. You want to take care of them as well. It just, I can't tell you how many times. Like I get it. I've seen it firsthand. It's hard for someone who hasn't seen it to really understand how your phone had to be blowing up for tickets for those games, especially when you're playing Villanova at Wachovia. Because I was at that game, right in Philly. So I totally get it. Because everybody, especially Monmouth, is home. Like, we want to support him. We want to go watch the game. So I'm glad I didn't text you. I'm very proud to say I was not one of those people. But it happens, and I don't think people understand what a distraction it could be while all of it's going on. It's a lot, though. It's more than people, I think, would think. Would you say that? Yeah. Well, there's a lot to it, I actually I work for First Service Residential now, which is the largest property management residential company in the U.S. We manage over 8,400 communities, over 1.8 million homes. And last week ago, we had a appreciation day with Steve Gillian, who's a motivational speaker. And I had an event, so I missed this. We watched a replay just the other day, and he talked about, to be really good and focused as a leader, and like you can't let distractions get to you. Yep. And I look back at that, and it was amazing how that just resonated in talking about that. That's what we had to do as a staff. When you were asking, that was in particular the four of us, and Keith Olnick, we call Shooter as the fifth. That was our big part of our role is don't let the distractions get to the task at hand. Yep. We're still here to perform. Yep. And I was proud to say that we played really well in that game, won by over 20, and then from there, I remember we were supposed to fly out of Dayton. And the next morning, our flight was canceled to go to Philly. We ended up having to go to Cincinnati and then go to LaGuardia to get down to Philly. It was the only way we were going to get in that day. Wow. And then we were playing Villanova 2 days later. So it was just a little bit of a kind of crazy 2 weeks of just not really knowing where you were going to go, what you were going to do
the next day.
Yeah. So talk about, so when you face teams like Duke, Villanova, you're coming out of the NEC, do you, a little bit removing yourself as a coach, but you also a phenomenal player. I mean, do we have that picture of Dave Calloway as a player back in the day at Monmouth? I don't know if we could bring that up, but folks, I got to show you this a little bit. I mean, look, you got to look at the form on this. Look at the form on that, right? They started the hashtag even when back. He can play. Look at that, arm extended, right hand going up. Over. I mean, that's just beautiful, Dave. That's beautiful.
I noticed,
look at that. Look at that.
I did have hair back then, although it was already starting to recede. It's interesting. You show, I was known for shooting, and that's the highlight shot they show everybody. I maybe made 2 layups in my entire career, and that's one of them. I don't even know if I made that one. If you talk to Wayne Zook, he would tell you I missed it.
Oh, great memories, good times. But did you notice, was it noticeable? Because I remember being at Hampton, we would play everybody in state. So we'd go to, Mason, we'd play Virginia, Richmond. And when you got to those schools, it was like, wow, it's different here, right? So when you saw the size and the physicality of the team, and you guys had some pretty big players yourself, but did you notice a difference? Like, were they much bigger, stronger, faster? Because everyone's saying, like, currently right now the talk is St. Peter's, Kentucky, and what they did against the other team. I want to say maybe Murray State or whoever else they beat.
Murray State, they beat the second round.
Yeah, so it's like, should there be a greater appreciation for the lower seeds because they don't match up physically, or is there, given the parity in today in college basketball, is there much of a difference in size, strength, ability, and things of that nature? I know it might seem like a mundane question, but I'm also asking on behalf of the audience who might not know.
Well, first of all, the game's evolved, right? And you're right, there is more parity. This year you've seen a little bit more of an uptick in the mid-majors as well because of the COVID transfer rule. You have a lot of teams that have, 20, 21, 22-year-old men. We were just talking, Texas Tech is favored over Duke.
Yeah.
I think their average starting age is, a little over 21, and what's Duke's average starting age? A little around 18, and so you're talking men playing against still, teenage boys that, even though the physicality and the athleticism, you're probably going to give that advantage to Duke, but that age advantage, that strength, that 3 years of development, even just physically, that's where you see now the mid-major teams, that's when they have a chance. What had happened for a couple of years is you had the transfer portal where the mid-major players as freshmen and sophomores, if they were having really good years or seasons, they were transferring up to bigger schools. That didn't usually happen in the past. It was more so you saw transfer only when players weren't playing. They would transfer.
Yeah.
Now you're seeing players are transferring or playing and then transferring up. So that's where you saw a dip in the mid-majors. It's kind of developed back. Yeah. But to answer your direct question, I remember one of the problems when you play, a Duke or a Villanova, or we played Mississippi State the one year too, is you can't, in practice, you can't practice the reality of their size, their athleticism, and their quickness.
Right.
Like you can't simulate it in practice.
Right.
Because the team we're practicing against are the guys that are the second team. They're not as good as our first team.
Correct.
And then we can show what they're going to run, but we can't show the ability or the quickness that they're going to be able to do it at. So what happens is also, like offensively, when we go to make a pass, we can't simulate their quickness and length on defense. So your margin of error is just so much smaller.
Yeah.
When you're at the lower levels on the talent pool.
Yeah.
What's been amazing with the St. Peter's run is, their front court, you look at it from a physicality standpoint, did not match up with Murray State and obviously didn't match up with Kentucky. But they were able to just, like, as Shaheen said, they could just ball. They could play. Yeah. They're from New York and Brooklyn and Jersey City, and they know how to play up to that size and handle it, and that's why they've been able to hang in there and play. And the defensive pressure they put on the perimeter has also made it harder, for Kentucky and Murray State to just flat out score.
Yeah. So obviously we're doing this from New Jersey. We're all Jersey guys, right? You're Jersey, I'm Jersey. So for guys who are interested in the St. Peter's run right now, right, and everybody rooting for the Peacocks, home state team, they got by Kentucky, and that was a celebratory thing. No time to breathe, right? And he acted like he'd been there before. Like he told the guys, like, just said, shake hands, whatever. They beat Murray State. Okay, fine. Now they have time to breathe a little bit. They've had a few days. Do they become, and the other team they're playing, who are they playing next? Purdue? Purdue ain't sleeping on them.
In Philly.
So do you think that's a little bit different, right? So do you think, like, was Kentucky maybe sleeping on them a little bit? Was Murray State maybe sleeping on them because they didn't have the time? It was bang, bang, right? Okay, major upset. Okay, we don't have enough time to prepare for them. Oh, shit, we got upset too. Now Purdue has a week, right? And St. Peter's has a week. Do you think that benefits or hurts a school like St. Peter's, and does it benefit or hurt a school like Purdue?
It benefits Purdue.
Yeah,
by far it benefits Purdue. As you mentioned, the players, they have their attention. You know, Murray State, well, first of all, is another great mid-major program. So it was really just two mid-major programs going at it,
right,
2 days later after they both won their first round. Now for Purdue, they've watched every tape on St. Peter's. They're going to know what their tendencies are. And if you talk to the college coaches, the veterans that have done it for a long time, that have advanced and done very well in the NCAA tournament, they do not look too far ahead. They play every round, every tournament region like a four-team tournament. They only worry about the 4 teams in their pod and their section. So like Duke, for example, or say Kentucky, for example, last week, they weren't looking at that we could be playing Purdue 2 games down the road.
Right.
They were focused on St. Peter's, and then if they won, they were prepared to play Murray State, and I forget who Murray State beat. Yeah. So it's the same way. So now, after they've advanced, now Purdue is focused on St. Peter's, and if they win, the other 2 teams in that bracket, which I believe is maybe UCLA and North Carolina.
Yeah.
So like that, they're only going to focus on those 4 teams. They're not even worried about what's going on with the other 12 teams.
Yeah, win in advance.
It's just
win in advance.
Yeah, but those who say we're on and Matt Painter's doing his damnness to tell the Purdue players we're not looking past St. Peter's.
Yeah.
And his players probably aren't because they they beat Kentucky.
They saw what happened.
Yeah, so they'll be ready to go. But I'll tell you, this has been a fabulous run. No 15 seed has made it past this. Only 2 have ever made it to the Sweet 16.
Yep.
So, if they can survive and advance again, it would be pretty amazing.
Yep. And we know one school that was a 15-2 victory. I think it was Hampton, Iowa State, maybe, when they had Marcus Five or something like that, right?
Yes.
So give it up for Hampton. Just kidding, I wasn't there. I'm never associated with the wins. So does anybody at this point, hey, what's up, David Stevens? Does anybody have a question for Coach at this point? Because I'm going to transition into another part of job that he has with CBS Sports, or had. I don't even know if you're still doing. I got to find. Yeah, Dave.
Yeah, Steve, I do. Coach, I want to carry on when you were saying about preparing for those leader teams. How much does the game film contribute to how you prepare? No, you can't, like you said, simulate their speed or size. Do you rely more on the game tape then to simulate their plays to help get your team in a mindset for those type of matchups?
So the question from the audience, for those watching live maybe or going to watch it later, is, given to what Coach said about you can't really prepare practice for the physicality and the speed of the team, question was, so what role, if any, does watching film play since you can't simulate that stuff live in practice?
Yeah, so recruiting has evolved over time. I mean, back in the day, when I first started in the early 90s, I was an assistant. We were allowed to go out and watch them play live, and we would go out and scout and come back. That eventually changed where you weren't allowed to do that anymore. And in fact, the only time you can scout, believe it or not, was when you are live in a tournament like that. So Murray State coaching staff and players or whatever, they were around and able to watch the Kentucky St. Peter's game and scout live, and vice versa. But prior to that, it's all film now. So now it is all film, to answer your question. And there is technology out there nowadays where it's broken down for you, offensive plays, defensive plays. You can break it down with specialty plays based on out-of-bound plays. So it makes the coaches who are handling the scout be able to do a better job, just be more efficient with their time and getting a full scout to prepare the team for that. Now, each coach, they have their own way that they like to share the scout with their team. You know, and the game's involved as so much now too. So you'll have some that will show, pretty much every play that they potentially do. And then you'll have some that'll just want to show, hey, these are the tendencies of this player, and this is where they're really, really good, and we got to try to take them out of that. Or this is a weakness that we see. Like a big guy catches it, and he's over his left shoulder every time, so we got to get right on his left shoulder, and not let him do that. So those types of things.
Yep.
I have a question for you.
This is Lou.
What's up, Lou?
He's a golfer, Dave. Works at the Howell course.
I've
right?
probably seen you there. I played at the Howell course.
I was going to say, you two would have a lot to talk about after basketball.
George Dixter.
I know George very well, yes.
I've worked with him for years.
Yeah, yes.
Anyway, so you were mentioning about you were 16 seed against Duke that year. So what year was that?
That was in 2001.
And where did Duke wind up in that tournament?
Where did Duke? They won the national championship.
So is there any satisfaction in knowing, well, we lost to the national champion at all?
So
what memorable players do you remember from that team?
yeah, well, so I remember doing the scouting report. Well, first, yeah, so I remember doing the scouting report, and we're going through the players, these players, and point guard's Jay Williams. You can go to his left.
And the question was, who did he play in 01? It was Duke, #1 team. And were there any memorable players? What do you remember about it? Was there any consolation in knowing that you lost to the national champion?
So as we're going through the scouting report, the point guard's Jay Williams. You can go to his left. He can go to his right. Jay to 3. No weaknesses. He's a pro.
Yeah.
The off guard is Chris Duhan. He can go to his left. He can go to his right. Jay to 3. No weaknesses. He's a pro. The small forward is Mike Dunleavy. He can go to his left. He can go to his right. He's got Jay to 3. There's no weaknesses. He's a pro. And we went along all the way to Boozer and Battier and the first guy off the bench. The first 6 players were first-round draft picks. But the funnier part of that story is the way the NCAA tournament works is when the day before you play, we were playing on a Friday that year. So on Thursday, you have a mandatory practice for 1 hour in the arena. They literally put the clock up at 1 minute and 1 hour, and it clicks down, and you come on the court and you practice. And while you're practicing, the team you're going to play does a press conference. So we were on the floor practicing for an hour, and Duke was in the press conference. They were actually lying because they were saying all the right things, like, yeah, we're not looking past Monmouth. That's the only game we're worried about, So they were doing a really good job of fibbing. And then after the hour was up, and I mentioned to you about the scouting report, we go in now for our press conference, and Duke goes out to practice. And the very first question I get is, what are you telling your kids their realistic chance of winning this game is? Which I also mentioned, the last game out, they just beat North Carolina by 40 in the ACC championship game. And that was the year that Matt Doherty was the coach. And North Carolina was actually 8th in the country. It was the one good year. He had a rough time, but it was his good year. So I'm asked that question, what's your realistic chance of winning this game? Which is a question I was not going to answer. I wasn't going to go down the route of like, yeah, we're just happy to be here. I wasn't going there. And I wasn't going like, yeah, we're preparing like any other game and we prepare to win. We're going to win. So I did say that, the good news is many people told me they have the winner of the Monmouth Duke game to go on and win the whole tournament. So I predicted it. See, so it wasn't too bad.
Nice. Any other questions? All right, so Coach, now let's transition because we're still on the topic of the NCAA tournament, kind of from an insider's perspective. You served as an assistant for an NCAA tournament appearance under Coach Zoe, correct?
Correct.
So you got to see it. Did that assistant role prepare you to become a head coach, to know what to expect from the assistants when you got there twice?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, Wayne Zoe did he worked under Pete Carrill. He worked at Rutgers for the Final Four team under Coach Young, and then it moved around and ended up, it was at Providence, and then ended up at Princeton under Pete Carrill. and then went to Columbia for a few years as a head coach. And then when he came to Monmouth, I was his first recruit, played for him. And then I graduated in May of 91 and September of 91. I was on the road and coaching the guys I just played with the last 3 years, but also on the road recruiting, you know, just after I just graduated.
Yeah.
And he had me.
That had to be interesting.
It was amazing. And he had me, you know, scouting and doing everything. And I had just, you know, got done playing.
With those guys you're now coaching.
Those guys, you know,
That's
just
crazy.
less than 4 months ago, you know.
Yeah.
So he really prepared me for, you know, the opportunity when it became available to become the head coach. You know, and I was fortunate then when I got the head job, you know, Ronnie Crail, you know, he could have been the head coach if he wanted. But he was a teacher at the time, and he had a great situation because he was a part-time coach with us where all he had to do was coach. He didn't really have to go out and recruit and deal with the press or any of all the other stuff. He just came to practice every day and just coached and helped us be better. And I would also Mark Calzanetti, who was a veteran coach. And for the large part of our coaching success in the NCAA tournament, we had Jeff Billett as well, who played at Rutgers, and that was kind of our staff, you know, for the nucleus of our time.
Yep.
So, so anyway, that was sort of you know, our teams and our team, meaning our coaching staff. We were all kind of in it together, and you know, a lot of experience, which was great.
Yep. So now, what I'd like to do, because I know a little bit about you, like, so for the people that don't know, my probably closest relationships in basketball life were you, Coach Zoke, Ronnie Crail, and Calzo, right? So, and I used to stay with them in San Antonio. We'll talk about that story in a second, because I don't know if you remember the car I pulled up in before Dick Vitale's dinner to pick Coach Zoke up. You were there with Ronnie Crail, and he took one look at it, and he just said, "Steve, I'm going to walk. I'm not getting in this thing." I don't know if you remember that or not, but we'll talk about it. Tell people about what you do or what you did for CBS, right? And what that experience was like preparing for the March Madness and CBS and being on the inside, like the TV studio or whatever you did. I don't even know what you did.
Sure.
I just know you were involved, so I'm actually interested in learning about this too.
So 1992, so the 91-92 season was my first year as assistant coach. I played the year before, so it was my first year. And that was also the very first year that CBS took over the entire tournament. So prior to that, ESPN had the first two rounds, and CBS started after. They had the first round, and then CBS took over when it came into the weekend on the second round. That year was the first year CBS was taking every game. It was all 63 games. There was no opening round games back then. So Jim Nance would be in the studio at the time, and Mike Francesa, who worked for the Fan, was also on air at that time. And for NFL football, they used to have college assistant coaches come in on Sundays and watch the games with all the football games going on. And then when they come back at halftime, back then it was Terry Bradshaw and the guys, a lot of the guys that are on Fox now, but that were on CBS at the time, and they would tell them what they thought was going on in the games, and they would use it on the air, whether they liked it or, you know, if they wanted to use it or not. So Nance had the same idea for the NCAA tournament. So he asked Francesa. Francesa asked Jim O'Connell, who writes for the Associated Press, and Hawk recommended myself and Rick Datica, who it was also, he and I both graduated at the same time. He had just graduated Rutgers. He was actually the graduate assistant at Rutgers for Bob Wenzel at the time. Yep. And so the two of us were in the studio the first year. And we were in the studio and literally just watching the games. And I actually have a picture that I could probably pull up and show of that they took of me as the years went on. I did it every year. Rick eventually got out of coaching. So then it ended up just being me. And I kept going for years. And then they eventually got to where it was really became more Clark Kellogg was in there and Pat O'Brien, and then it was Greg Gumbel. And I have a picture, and then they had the second weekend they started where they would bring the coaches in if they were upset in the first round, or the first weekend. So 1 year was Rick Pitino came in, and 1 year was Stu Jackson, 1 year Majerus. They had Pete Carrill in 1 year, and so the 1 year they actually had Dean Smith in the year he retired. And I have a picture of myself on the studio with Clark Kellogg and Greg Gumbel and Dean Smith. They're kind of like this, listening to me.
Yeah.
You know, and I joked that like I was getting the lunch order. But in reality, I was actually telling him something that had just happened in one of the games. And Clark Kellogg would say, hey, you know, these 2 games are going over here. I'm going to lock into these 2 games, and you watch these 2 games. And then back then, I don't know if you remember, during the tournament, you would only get 1 game on CBS. And then they would come back from timeout, and they'd do the 4 corners, and they'd say, we'll tell you what's going on in the other 3 games, and Clark would tell you what's going on.
Yeah.
And sometimes what he would tell you is stuff that, you know, I would tell him, and he would just put it in his words.
That's awesome. How did you find that experience?
Oh, it was tremendous. I would see some part of all 63 games, and you know, you get to see behind the scenes how they think and work, and it was a lot of fun, and you know, the personalities and the behind the scenes work, and then you know, to me, like I mentioned, the excitement around the NCAA tournament. You know, I got to be a part of it. It was great.
And I don't think this, I mean, this kind of goes without saying. I think everybody in the room here would probably be able to pick up on it. And I'm not doing this to literally, like, no pun intended, blow smoke up your, you know what. But that's a testament to you and a knowledge about, like, your basketball knowledge, right? To be invited to do that, that's a pretty cool thing. They're not going to just ask anyone to do that. That's a pretty important role. And I think it was pretty cool. I always thought that was so interesting. And when you talked about it, I thought that's what you were doing. That's exactly what I thought you were doing. But it was never really explained. It was just like, oh, yeah, Dave's working CBS analyzing some games. I'm like, that's really cool. Like, everyone just kind of blew it off. I was like, no, that's really cool. Like, they're going to you for that advice of what's happening in the country with basketball. I just always thought it was awesome. So we have about 20 minutes left. I'm going to ask simple. Does anybody have any questions? So simple tournament stuff. From this point forward, who do you like? And then I'm going to share 2 quick stories about our past, and then we could shut it down because I know you have somewhere else to be. It's fine. It's March Madness, dude. Everybody wants you. Everybody wants a piece of Dave Calloway.
Well, thanks. So, who do I like?
Is this putting you in a bad spot by asking you that question, by the way?
No, it's fine. Well, I mean, who do I like? I like St. Peter's. I mean, come on. Like, you know, that's who I like. You know, I know Shaheen. I had a friend that you know, I grew up with, that he texted me. He's like, I remember when you were coaching and going on the road with you to see him play when he was a freshman at Marist High School in a state playoff game when he was at St. Pat's, you know?
Yeah.
So, you know, obviously the St. Peter's story.
Who were you recruiting, Geraldo?
Well, he was after that.
Okay,
Just, it was a state playoff game. We
yeah.
went. But anyway, he, you know, so obviously, you know, you're I think, naturally, the Cinderella underdog, the 15 seed, but I think you add in it's St. Peter's, it's Jersey City, it's local.
Yep.
You know, that's where the heart is going to go. You know, someone asked me about, you know, earlier that Texas Tech is favored over Duke, and you know, would I bet Duke? And no, I would not bet either, because I'm not usually right when it comes to that anyway. There's a reason those odd makers are really, really good at what they do. So I try to stay away from that. But, you know, for some reason, Kansas is just standing out to me a little bit. Just seems like, you know, Bill Self gets there every 3 or 4 years, you know, and he's run into like some sort of buzzsaw. The one year he ran into Villanova, the year that they dominated in the Final Four. Yep. And, you know, I don't know. That's just the one that they kind of flown under the radar all year in my mind a little bit. But they're the one. If I had to pick one out of the 16 that I think has a good chance, I would go for the Jayhawks. Yeah, that would be my. There you go.
Nice. We have agreement in the room. So that's really interesting. So one of the funny stories I'll share, because nobody here really knows, right? So just to let you know how close I was with the staff there. I used to get in a car, Ronnie Crail, I used to get in a car with Ronnie, right? And I'd go to him because he would leave school. He was my mentor when I was a head coach at Point Beach. And he'd say, hey, let's get in the car, we're playing Mount St. Mary's, let's come for the ride. And so he used to listen to AM radio, all the oldies. And it was, let me just tell you, it was precious moments. But it was funny because if anybody here wants it, I have the original match-up zone defense notes from Monmouth University on Ronnie's typewriter. This is not from a computer, it's from a typewriter. So I just wanted to show you that. I thought I'd get a little laugh at it. But those aren't the two laughable stories I was going to share with you. But I do want to ask this question. Do you miss it at all? And I'll preface it why, right? Because I was only at Hampton a quick 3 years, right? And then I went to work with Bill Williams after that. And I just found out today they're doing a nice documentary on him tonight.
On Bill?
At 7:30. They're doing like something of 757, that area. But anyway, so that was kind of cool. But I'm looking, the guys on the staff, when I was under Nickelberry at Hampton, Adrian Walters, now the associate head coach for the women at UNC, just made the Sweet 16. Akeem Miskadeen was at Florida this past year, just moved over with the coach to Georgia. And Nickelberry just gets the assistant with Pat Ewing. I was like, that's a great staff, and I didn't even know it. Like, we're all in the same offices together, and it's great. So now I'm getting all the texts. You know how the industry is. Everybody like, do you miss it? Do you miss it? Any chance you're getting back? I'm like, no. Stop this right now. So I'm going to ask you that same thing. Do you ever miss it?
Well, first of all, in October, it hits you.
Yeah.
Because that's when we were always getting ready, and you're getting ready for the first practice and the beginning of the season. So, I think about it then. And then obviously this time of year is, the nostalgia, and we've been talking all about the March Madness and the NCAA Tournament. It just brings back great memories. So I would just say, I look back at it, and I was really, really fortunate. As we mentioned earlier, I got to Monmouth in 1987 as a freshman, and I started as a freshman, played all 4 years. We had good seasons. My freshman season, we beat Rick Smits and Marist,
yeah.
And that was the first winning season in Monmouth history in Division I. They had only been Division I 6 years at that point and hadn't had a winning season. And then right after I got done playing, I became an assistant coach, and 6 years later, at 28, I'm the head coach. I'm the youngest head coach in the country.
I was just going to say, didn't that make you were at the time at 28 when you were made head? I'm sorry to point.
That's okay.
I'm just real. No, this is really.
Point, it's all
no,
good.
listen, but this is really interesting to me because I do believe that is a fact. When you were named head coach at Monmouth, you were the youngest coach in Division I history, correct?
I don't know about history, but at that time, definitely at that time.
That's pretty cool.
So, and then from there, 3 years later,
Yeah.
and so I'm shaking Mike Krzyzewski's hand, and we're playing Duke in the NCAA Tournament,
Yeah.
and we're fortunate enough to go a couple more times. So, I had a good run, was head coach for 14 years, was there for 24 years. I got to do it at a very young age where, I didn't know. I was too young and naive to know that I should be like a little more stressed or worried about this, or I didn't even know.
Yeah.
I was just out coaching and enjoying it and trying to just make the players better, trying to make their experience good, and try to win basketball games and win championships.
Dave, you went to the dance 3 times, brother. Has Monmouth been back since? I'm not pooping on anybody, but I don't think they've been back since, right?
No, they've had some really good seasons. I thought this year they lost to St. Peter's in the championship game, so they had a good opportunity. But anyway, my point of it is, I had a good run, and I got to do it at a young age. Where a lot of guys, my peers, they never got the opportunity, or they get the opportunity at my age now.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. I'm not. Listen, I love King, and Rick's been on a podcast. Callahan, he and I are close, and so I'm not shitting on him. I would never do that to those guys. But what I'm just saying is, I don't think people understand when you're a one bid tournament, you have to win your tournament championship to get there.
Yes.
Then that's the only way you're going to get there. 2 bids ain't coming out of the MAC. 2 bids ain't coming out of the NEC at the time. You have to win it to get there. That's why I'm saying Monmouth hasn't been back. Because to put it in perspective, you've made it there 3 times. They haven't been back since. Like, people take it for granted sometimes when you make it to the tournament, but they don't understand how hard it is to get there.
It's very
That's
hard.
all I'm saying.
Yes.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
But I don't think they realize it, because at Hampton, same thing. Unless you're winning a tournament against Norfolk State or whoever, Morgan State in the finals every year, you could have a 20-win season. You could kick everybody's ass in the regular season. You could have been a regular season champ. Congratulations. But if you don't win that tournament, you stay home. Sure. It's so incredibly hard. So I just think I want people who are listening in or listening here live, I just think you gave this community such a beautiful thing for the time you were there, to be able to go to the NCAA tournament 3 times and have the name on the screen and have them watch you on TV. You gave this whole community something great for all those years, and I think now they realize it, like, wow, we kind of missed that. That was nice. And as evidenced by a team that nobody ever roots for or knows much about, all of a sudden now everyone's a Peacock fan and they know everything about the program because they won. And that's what you did for us all those 3 times. It was just great. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Well, and I think I'm a Peacock fan right now too. So it's a lot of fun. But it's all relative, and you take things for granted. We had a good run where we went in three times in a 6-year period. In fact, I'll share a funny story with you, because I was just sharing a story with Jeff Stapleton, the athletic
of
director.
Course.
Someone was commenting about my ring, and this is from the 2004 ring, and it's a smaller one. So we got one in 96, which was one of those big rings for 96.
I was going to text you, wear one of your rings, but I didn't want to be that guy.
Well, and then 2001, we got a big one as well, right? So in 04, when we won, I went to the Jostens rep, and I was like, I want something I can wear. These things are so damn big, I can't wear them. So we got small ones, and we actually ended up getting silver ones. All the other ones were gold. So now we get it, and then in 06, when we won again, the players came up and said, Coach, we don't want the small ring, we want the big ring. So I was like, fine, we'll get the big ring, and we'll get gold again. They wanted gold, so I was like, we'll get it. So I tell the Jostens rep, I said, listen, get all the players, the big ones and the whole thing, but the little one that I got in 04, can you get me the same one for the 06? Give them the big ones, just get me the small one and the gold one.
Diva.
So anyway, the rings come in, but this is where they take it for granted. This is what I was talking about. So the rings come in, and my ring comes in, and it's a big one. So I called the Jostens rep up, and I'm like, Jim, what's up? I thought I was gonna get the small one. He goes, yeah, my bad, I messed up. I'll get you next time. I was like, next time, man, next time.
That's so funny. It is incredibly hard for any next time, and you did it 3 times, man. So I know that you only have 10 minutes left, so the one story will bring us way back, and then I'll tell the story about the Final Four to which I referred earlier. So when we were playing, I was a graduate student at Monmouth, and we used to see you in the finals every year of the intramural championship. We had to play the men. Do you remember this?
Sure.
We had to play the men's basketball team, the men's basketball staff. It was you, Partee, just you
Couple
guys.
professors.
Oh my gosh, yeah, but they were just passers and screeners. You guys lit it up, right? So it was us in the finals every year. It was me, Kevin Hines, Kingman, Kenny's. It was really, really fun, and we almost always knew every year we were going to see each other in the finals. But my kids, knowing that I'm now 6'6", 51, and 280 pounds, do not believe this, and I said I'm going to bring it up on air because I think Coach Calloway can confirm it. Were you in the gym that night when I broke the glass backboard?
I think I remember that slightly.
And you don't have to be nice to me because we're on a show. If you don't remember, you don't remember.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the details.
It was in warm-ups, and I dunked the basketball,
so we had
and
to move,
it shattered, and we had to move the game to another court.
Exactly.
Do you remember that?
I do remember that.
All right, thank you. So to my boys at home, your father did break a glass backboard dunking it. You had Coach Calloway confirm it here right now. And then the second funny story, just to give you an insight into how fun the Final Fours are, I get into the Final Four. I'm the coach at Point Beach, and Ronnie Krell had been a long-time mentor. Coach Zoke was a mentor. Dave was a mentor. They always let me come and watch practices because I had a very similar team. We were smaller. We were playing St. Anthony's and the Long Branches, and I just needed a system to fit my players the best, and they had it. So they were very, very nice and let me come every practice, games, watch them, ride with Ronnie to the games. It was just a beautiful, beautiful relationship. So I wanted to do something really, really nice. So Ronnie's like, yeah, I think we need a rent-a-car. We're trying to get from this to this dinner. It was Dick Vitale's Great Alaska Shootout announcement and all that stuff. So I said, Ronnie, I'll get the car. Don't you worry about it. I'll see you at 8 o'clock. I want to do this for you guys. You've done so much for me. I appreciate it. So I didn't realize, young, naive, stupid kid, pre-Uber, that it's really, really hard to find a rental car in Indianapolis during the Final Four when you get there a day late. So there were no rent-a-cars available other than one. And it was like, something Topper rent-a-car. I said, that sounds great. Do you have any availability? I had called 30 or 40 places. Yes, we do. Great, I'll take it. Well, I didn't know the Topper was they had animal heads on top of the car. Like one was a chicken head, one was a dolphin, one was an elephant, and they just did it for notoriety to get people to call their cab company as a gag. The only one they had left at the time, and I don't remember me pulling up to the museum with this, was the chicken head. So it was like a 79 Lincoln Mark V with the chicken head on it and cigarette burns in the seats and everything else. But I rented it, and I said, all right, I pull up. Now, mind you, Coach Zoke, Coach Calloway, Ronnie Krell, they're coming out of the steps with Dickie Vitale. Coach Krell and Dave are close with Krzyzewski. So they are all coming down right when this awards dinner got let out. They're all getting in their cars to go to the next event. And I pull up with this chicken head, and when you hit the horn, everybody, right? So then to let them know that I'm there, I hit the horn. And then Dave is like, I'm not even walking up, right? Ronnie's like, are you kidding me, Steve? Like, really? He's laughing his head off. Coach Zoke comes up, and I get out like I'm the butler, right? So I get out, and I go open the door, And Coach Zoke looks in, he goes, "You're kidding me. I'm not getting in this thing. How far is this?" I said, "It's about 1.5 miles." He goes, "I'm going to walk." Right? And Coach Krell, everybody was crying, but I don't know if you remember that, but it was hysterical, and you guys were always just the greatest to me, and you let me live it out. And you busted my hump for a long time about that, but it was worth it. I deserve it. Dave, I know you have to leave. We have about 5 minutes left. What are any parting words you want to leave for the people here in the audience who are basketball fans watching the tournament now? What are things they should be looking for, or what words of wisdom do you want to leave with them so they can take not only to the rest of this tournament, but in the future?
Well, I don't know how often I impose wisdom on people.
Come on, man.
But, I think the excitement that the tournament brings, we've been talking a lot about St. Peter's, but within households, within families, my wife is from a large family, nieces and nephews that went to schools when they're playing against each other. It just brings even just families together, even if you're rooting against, because one cousin went to one school and the other cousin went to a different one. It's just a great time of year. I think, especially here in the Northeast, you feel like we're leaning into this, and now all of a sudden the weather's going to break and we get into the summer. And the NCAA tournament just brings back like the purity of the game. It's like I took a picture. It was a Delaware-Villanova game, and the guard from Villanova was driving the baseline, and one of the Delaware players stole it, and the other Delaware defender was just guarding, and the ball was stolen, and the Delaware defender, who wasn't even really involved in the play, was like this, like, yeah. It was like just so fired up because his teammate stole the ball. And like that's the purity, and the excitement, the NCAA tournament. And you watch the bench, and everybody's into it, and they're so excited, and professional sports, it's gotten to now, other than the NFL, it's 7-game series that go on forever. It's one and done, and every go back to the 350 coaches and schools, every coach, they're coaching, until the horn blows, thinking, all right, I'm coaching until the next game, unless you're in the championship game or the game's out of reach and it's over, and you're just coaching and you're trying to win and advance. And if you and then all of a sudden it comes to an end, like that. And then the emotions just hit, for the seniors. And it's interesting, I was watching this morning and they were talking about, Mike Krzyzewski, this could be his last game. Yeah. Right? But that's how his players, in particular, it's usually seniors, but, now in the one and done era, now it could be even freshmen and sophomores or whatever, they're all in that same boat. So even though tonight, if Duke advances, the next one, whatever, that's going to be Coach K's last game, but it's his players' last game too. It's that team's last game. And that's the emotion, the raw emotion that goes through, between the team that wins and the team that loses, and the finality for the team that loses. And literally, if it's a 1-point game, 10 seconds earlier, they weren't even thinking about losing. They don't even know. Like 10 seconds is like, we're just focused on this play that we're going to try to do to our best ability to put that ball in the basket to win this game. That's all they're focused on. They're not thinking about losing or winning. They're just thinking about making this play, and we're going to make this play, and then we're going to advance. Yeah. But then one of them doesn't make the play, and they lose. And then, boom, the emotion hits. Yeah. It's really, it's tremendous.
Wow. So on that note, too, Matt Gathman made a point to reach out to me on Facebook to say, please thank Coach Calloway. He was instrumental in my days at St. Rose High School. He had a huge positive impact on me, and I'm the person I am today because of him. So I just wanted to let you know he said that. He made it a point to make me say that to you, or wanted to express that to you tonight. So that's from him through Facebook, and I wanted to get that out. How do you still stay in touch with some of your players from over the years, from over those years?
Yeah, I've been to weddings. I have a group that they have fantasy football. So, I get involved in that with them and
Talk
together.
to everybody, because as a high school coach, right? So I share an office with Johnny Helm and Matt Catania, two guys I coached at Point Beach, right? So we've stayed in. It's kind of interesting how that coach-player relationship has kind of morphed into a friendship now. And I have that with several of guys who played for me. What is that like for you? And kind of let people into that side, the more human, personal aspect of it. It's a game, yes, and you're there together for 4 years, 3 years, however long, yes. But afterwards, those relationships still flourish. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, it's still, their relationships are still by far the closest with their teammates. It's the people, and my relationships with basketball players from Monmouth are still closest with my former teammates, the guys I played with. But as far as the players that played with us, been fortunate enough to be at weddings and, see the births of their kids, and now getting to see their kids. I'm a little bit older now, where their kids are getting to the age that they're playing, and I'm watching their kids play. So it's more of like, it's funny. When I got the job when I was 28, I learned a lot from Wayne's Oak, and the intensity that Coach Crail and Coach Cowles used to bring every day, and we were still of that era of, old school, like push them hard, let's just try to get the most out of them, and try to, we want to win.
Yeah.
And if you help us win, you're gonna play. And like the Bobby Knight mentality. Now, I never threw a chair across the floor, so that wasn't that bad, you know. But it was, so you had that type of intensity, and to say that all those players, love me 24/7, I think I'd probably be lying.
Yeah.
And if they said that, they're lying. But in the same respect too, I think there's, hopefully, I think there's a respect there, that I'm so appreciative we've had so many great players.
Yeah.
So you mentioned going to the tournament. I didn't make any of those baskets. The players did, we just hopefully, got them to play together, play hard, and try to win together and put them in positions to make plays and to be able to see them. And to me, the excitement and it's funny, the texts that go back and forth now, like when St. Peter's was winning, we were texting back, or the opening round game, Bryant was in the opening round this year, we were texting back a little bit forth, but we were in that arena playing in Dayton, and those memories, that's probably the part that you cherish.
That's awesome. Well, I'd like to leave on a high note, and we're going to end there because I know you have to leave, and it's almost 5 of. I promised you we'd be done by 5 of. So, folks, I hope this is a memory that you will cherish, getting to talk to a college basketball coach that was in the tournament 3 times. Dave, thank you so much for coming on and give us an insider's perspective. That was really awesome.
Thank you.
So thank you so much. It's good to see you again, and I just can't thank you enough for being here.
Awesome.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.